all of our honored guests, and my brothers. My priest hero has already been mentioned from this amble. He was one of 12 children, and although their family was never well off financially, they always had room for one more. And in fact, his youngest sibling was adopted by his father when someone in the town was unable to raise the child. And so this is the charity that Father Silos inherited from a very young age. Father Silos had an aptitude for learning, and when he was approaching the point when he needed to choose a career, he decided to go on for further studies. While he was in fact discerning a call to the priesthood. And while he was studying philosophy in the university, God revealed to him his vocation was indeed to the priesthood, and in fact to the Redemptorist order. So he applied to the Redemptorists and to a particular house that was providing ministry to German-speaking Catholics in America. And so in early 1844, he left Germany and sailed to America, made a vow on the way never to return to Germany for fear that love of his family would draw him away from his vocation, and was eventually ordained a priest in Baltimore for the Redemptorists. Father Silos spent 23 years ministering to Catholics in the United States, over which time people came to know him as a prayerful man. He was seen praying the rosary almost constantly. He would prepare his homilies on the trains while he traveled from one place to another. He heard many confessions, and people attested to his sanctity that they experienced in the confessional. He was, many healings were attributed to his intercession. He, of course, never was responsible for that attribution, but people got the word around. There's a story of a man who came to his rectory asking for healing. He was on crutches when he came. So he came asking for healing, and Father told him, "I don't have the power to do that, only God does." And the man threw the crutches out the window and said, "I'm not leaving until you heal me." And sure enough, when Father saw the faith that he had in a priest's blessing, and he gave him the blessing, the man walked away cured. So things like this, people heard about it one way or another. Not only by his life, but especially by his death, did Father Silos emulate Christ. In the late 1860s, after the Civil War, there was an outbreak of the epidemic of yellow fever in New Orleans, and through some shifting around of the assignments, Father Silos was sent down to New Orleans to minister to the people there. And he didn't have very long to spend there. His time there was less than a year. On the way down, a group of religious sisters was conversing with him, and they asked him how long he'd be there, and he told them, "It'll be a year, and then I'll die of yellow fever." So he predicted his own death. While he was there, he was ministering to a young girl who had caught the disease and was dying, and her mother was despairing, and he told her mother, "I will offer my own life for her." And so shortly afterwards, he himself became sick. However, his cheerfulness throughout this was so profound that the doctors did not believe that he was severely sick until close to his own death. When he was finally told the doctor's pronouncement, he, of course, wasn't very surprised, but he took the news with great cheerfulness, saying, "Thank God that I'm being called home to heaven." He was always a very humble person. At one point, his name was on a list submitted for the replacement for the local bishop, and when he heard about this, he humbly begged that his name be dropped from the list, knowing his own weaknesses. Father Francis Xavier Silos came into my life during my younger grades in homeschooling, for which I was reading a biography of his, and this story has remained etched in my memory ever since then. He has always been a model of virtue for me, but especially for me in my illness, I have been drawn to imitate his example of great cheerfulness. If his life is beyond reach of my imitation, I at least hope to imitate his death, which is one of complete surrender to God's will and total cheerfulness in taking that with great joy. Praise be Jesus Christ.
Now and forever.